Question DS. What is the standard deviation of A times B, B times C, C times A? Condition 1. The standard deviation of A times B plus 3, B times C plus 3, C times A plus 3 is 2. Condition 2. The standard deviation of A times a whole of B minus A, negative A squared plus B times C, A times a whole of C minus A is 2. Solution. Let's solve this DS question using the variable approach. Property of standard deviation. S of whole of A times X plus B equals an absolute value of A times S of X, where S of X is the standard deviation of set X. What this means is parallel movement of data will not affect the standard deviation if the movement simply involves addition. But as the above points out, in the case of multiplication, the standard deviation only shifts by the same factor as each of the elements. Let's apply the 3 steps suggested previously. Follow the first step of the variable approach by modifying and rechecking the original condition and the question. We are asked about the standard deviation of the set A times B times B times C, C times A. Follow the second and the third steps. From the original condition, we have 3 variables A, B, C. To match the number of variables with the number of equations, we need 3 equations. Since conditions 1 and 2 will only provide 1 equation each, E would most likely be the answer. Recall 3 principles and choose E as the most likely answer. Let's take a look at conditions 1 and 2 together. Condition 1 tells us that the standard deviation of A times B plus 3, B times C plus 3, C times A plus 3 is 2. That's the given set with 3 added to each element of the set. Addition does not change the standard deviation at all. So the ST standard deviation of this set will match the ST standard deviation of the given set A times B, B times C, C times A. Therefore, condition 1 is sufficient by CMT2, which means that the number of answers must be 1. Condition 2 tells us that the standard deviation of the set A times a whole of B minus A, negative A squared plus B times C, A times a whole of C minus A is 2. We can modify the terms of this set as A times B minus A squared, negative A squared plus B times A, A times C minus A squared. Thus, we can see that each element of the set A times B minus A squared, B times C minus A squared, A times C minus A squared is A squared less than the elements of the set A times B, B times C, C times A. Therefore, the standard deviation will be the same for both by what we've learned about standard deviation in the lesson. Thus, the standard deviation of A times B, B times C, C times A will be 2 uniquely. Condition 2 is sufficient by CMT2, which means that the number of answers must be 1. 2 other things to keep in mind here. According to tip 1, it is about 90% likely that D would be the answer when the value of condition 1 is equal to the value of condition 2. Second, by common mistake type 4B, when A or B are too easily reached as an answer, then you have to consider D as an answer in particular. When condition 1 is easy and condition 2 is hard, the answer is usually D. Even when the number of variables in the original condition is 100, D is the most likely answer if condition 1 equals condition 2, which means that tip 1 is most powerful tip. If you have no clue as to how to solve this question, choose E as an answer because the number of variables is 3 in the original condition and the given conditions won't give you 3 more equations. This is a high-level GMAT question, but you can see how understanding standard deviation will help you avoid high-level calculations. Each condition alone is sufficient. Thus, D is the correct answer. Answer D.